question to you, as somebody who has been in professional shows, who's had to deal with professional screenplays, what's the difference between a professional screenplay and an amateur screenplay that somebody might send to you that just shops them out as being professional or shops them out as being kind of amateurish?
Um, well, I guess one of the first things that I would probably note is just um, how tight and concise professional screenplay uh, seems to be. I mean, everything that
Yeah.
you need to say is there, and sometimes that requires a little more description. But I find with amateur stuff, number one, there's just way too much on the page that doesn't really need to be there. And then the other one is just a complete lack of understanding of pacing and also intent, what the what the objectives are of each scene, so like
Yeah.
and they're not really always distinguishing between internal objectives of the character, like what they're thinking, and what they're physically doing on screen that is their objective, which is it's the action that drives the story forward. So a lot of people get lost in the head of their character, and they kind of do that either in lengthy descriptions or really long bits of dialogue with the characters sort of into exposition all over the place. So those are the big ones, because as soon as you see that, you can also probably tell that what you're going to get into is a really kind of wonky story arc, you know.
And the thing is, I don't know about you, but I could tell just by looking at the cover. So I haven't looked at the screenplay yet,
But
and I suddenly get a feel for it. And then I look at the first page and I go, no, I haven't even read the page. I kind of look at the formatting, at the white spaces, because professional screenplays got a lot of white spaces, because the writer is constantly redirecting your attention. He's manipulating you into the story. He's taking you from here and we're plunging into a canyon. He's really controlling the reader as you go along. So you can tell right off the bat by looking at it if you're in control, or if the writer's in control. But then it also depends. Also, if you're reading a modern screenplay, so something that's been produced the last 20 years, or something that's been produced in the 70s and the 80s, because you will get huge blocks of text. If you read one of the early versions of Raiders, for instance, Lawrence Kasdan, it's huge blocks of text, right? Like half pages of solid black. But they were thinking about screenplay in a slightly different way back then, because that solid block of black is an entire what they would call the shot sequence, where Indiana Jones realizes there's a hole in the ground, and then suddenly you've got the pit, and he's got to jump over the pit, and negotiating all of that and getting to the other end. That would be that solid block. So Steven Spielberg would be able to look at that page and say, that's that shot sequence that we're doing today. It's all there, right? It's not spread out on the page. It's all there. So it makes a lot of sense in terms of drive-by glances at the screenplay. You go, yep, we're doing this today. We're doing that. We're doing that. So that makes a lot of sense, but it makes it really difficult to read. So, which
yeah,
is one of the reasons why nowadays we kind of spread things out quite a lot. So what we tend to find today in a professional screenplay is that every sentence uh, redirects the camera, redirects your attention, redirects the drama, if you want to call it that. So somebody just running across the road in the script, they might go, okay, you just read through that really quickly. The director will look at that and say, that's three shots. That's the beginning of the shot, that's the running, that's the end of the shot, which we segue to shot number 4, number 5, number 6 along the way. So a screenwriter who's aware of what the director needs, because you need to point the camera at something. And that's the thing about having really cerebral kind of stuff on the page, is that I've got nothing to shoot. I've got your mug, but nothing else.
yeah,
It might be interesting psychologically, might be interesting, but give your character or give your actor something to do, a little bit of scene activity that reveals what's happening internally.
yeah.
If we're having a gentle chat in a kitchen and having a bit of a laugh, and the spoon that you're holding suddenly is crunched up into a ball, I know you're stressed. And yet I don't have to say anything, and it's on the page, right? You know how to do that. I know how to shoot it. I know how to write it. And it's a beautiful kind of dramatic shorthand. And that's the kind of stuff that professionals tend to do incredibly well. It's sparse on the page. It redirects the action quite a lot, and it says a lot in few words. All of this is really hard, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it's not categorical. Like you say, sometimes there's big chunks of text on the first page or two, and I go, is this any good? And you give it a chance, and sometimes it is. It's really good.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I think it makes me realize the writer knows what they're doing. It's kind of like when I get something, see something that you've written where there'll be a description of a sequence, um, and that last line might have something to do with the character getting struck in the face or slapped in the face, and the line that follows could be descriptive of all the emotions that are kind of rushing, but really the
Yeah.
word rage is all that you kind of maybe put there at the bottom,
Yeah.
and
I mean, a great example of this is somebody walking across a room, right? So in the screenplay, you can have Sebastian walks across the room, and I do this a lot, and this is something I nicked from Ron Bass, who did Rain Man and My Best Friend's Wedding and a bunch of stuff. Like on the page, this guy is incredible, but he's very sparse with it. So Sebastian walks across the room, and I'll italize this and say everybody thinks I'm a dick, right? So as an actor, you look at this and you go, "Man, I know how to do this because I know what that feels like." Or Sebastian walks across the room. He'll take any fucker on in this room. Suddenly, your demeanor is completely different, right? The action's the same. You're walking across the room, but suddenly the actor goes, "I know how to do this. I'm the cock of the walk. I know exactly how to do this. It's not like this. It's like this."
Yeah.
So you're not managing the actor. You're just giving them a little bit a sense of what the character is. Now it's up to you how you do this, by the way, and that's where the fun is. The director is going to say your limit is this. You're walking from there to there. Everything else within that space, man, this is yours. And the screenplay does exactly this. Says this is your limit. This is your sentence. How you do it is entirely up to you. And it's fun, and that's where the collaboration is. I'm not micromanaging you, but I've hit the emotion really really well.
Well, as an actor, that's something, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that's something that always, I'll read those moments where you put in something like that, like Sebastian walks across the room, and he'll take on anybody that comes,
Yeah,
we're, but
just fucking try it. Little inserts like that. Yeah,
yeah, and but it said it like it replaces what would otherwise be a paragraph worth of
yeah,
description about, but so many times I've read material that we've either been going back and forth on or that has come directly from you, and you'll, as an actor, I'll look at something and go, I know exactly what's going on through that whole walk sequence, or
yeah,
whatever it is
yeah.
in that character's head because of that one example, in a sense,
Yeah.
of what this character might be like on the inside.
And don't be boring, because the
Mhm.
thing about a screenplay is that it's a tool to persuade 70 other people to come and work on it. And it's a tool to persuade financiers to put 10 million into this thing. So it has to be on the page, and it has to be on the page that reflects the character in the world, but also the genre that you're in it. If you're doing something a bit scary, be scary on the page. Do the triple take in the mirror where you go, "Fuck, did not see that happen. Just shat myself." Just put it on the page, because when you're reading Robert McKee and Sid Fields, and they're like, "Oh, you can't use the word we in a screenplay. That's sacrosanct, and you can't do this, you can't do that." Suddenly, as a writer, you're completely bogged down with everything you can't do, but they're not telling you what you can do. And then you go to a professional screenplay, and there's tons of them out there, and you read them and you go, "Hang on, this dude is using we quite a lot. This guy is putting interstitial comments all over the place." And I'm not talking about Mr. Black saying, "When this, when this sells, I'm going to have this big fucking mansion," kind of thing. That's, you don't do that. But it's kind of these comments that tap right into the heart of the character. Even in the exchange of dialogues, as sometimes people will either say Sebastian reacts, and you're going, "That is incredibly dull. That I have nothing to do with that." But if somebody says something, and instead of saying Sebastian reacts, I put what? And then somebody says something else, you go, "No fucking way." And then another block of character, and you go, "Right, I've had enough." And though they're not bits of dialogue, but they're bits of behavior that, as a human being, you know exactly how to do this. And then you go through. I haven't explained anything, by the way, but you know exactly what you, at least one suggestion of how you can play the scene.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. And so, if I have any tips to give to any writers out there, is read professional screenplays. They're your template and standards. And everything else that people say around that, listen to it, but be aware that the pros are pros because they're doing it right. And if they're using the word we, or they're a little bit sweary or a little bit funny interstitially, if you're writing a comedy, be funny on the page, even in the outline mode. Make sure that the funny tone is in it. If you're writing something scary and you're outlining a New England horror movie, be scary on the page, man, because that's your job. You're there to persuade people, and I will use any means possible on the page to persuade you that this is a fun story, a good story. I will make you laugh on the page, definitely, because that's my job. Then the screenplay becomes something else. The moment you go into production, it becomes technical, and you're having to break everything apart, and you're having to budget every sentence and say, we cannot explode a helicopter. That's too expensive. That's $100,000 sentence. Let's not do this. That's a different conversation. But the first one is to get you excited. I want to scare you. I want to make you laugh. I want to make you thrilled. That's my job. So whatever it takes, put it on the page. Definitely.